Welcome to the Coaching Coordinator Podcast. Today we focus on college leaders, and we're speaking with one of the best offenses in the country in Division III, North Central Offensive Coordinator, Brad Spencer. Brad, it's great to have you here on the podcast.
Well, thanks, Keith. I appreciate you having me and giving me an opportunity to talk more about North Central and kind of what we're doing. So thanks so much. Honored to be here.
Well, Coach, we'll run this down real quick, and certainly it isn't all about the statistics, but statistically, you guys have some things that kind of jump off the charts here. You guys were number one in third down with 56%. You were number one in the red zone at 96.2%. You were number 6 in total offense at 516.7 yards per game. Number 3 in completion, 71.7%. Number 9 in scoring, 44.8 points per game. Number 11 in passing yards at 314.2. And you guys did a good job hanging on to the ball, tied for 14th with only 4 interceptions on the year. So you guys are clicking pretty well, have your offense running like a machine. When you look at
You've
that,
got it
though,
down.
When you look at it, though, how would you characterize, all those things happening for you guys and coming together? Why are you guys able to perform at such a high level?
Sure. Well, I think it starts with having great young men. As coaches, obviously, we feel like our job is to put our talent in the best situations possible. Never ask a kid to do something that he can't do. So that's the trick every year is through camp and honestly through the first probably third or fourth of the season, trying to figure out what are our strengths and what can we do best this year. And fortunately we've got some really good young men. We had some kids back at tight end, receiver. Our quarterback was back, which is obviously a big part of that. We had 2 of our starting offensive linemen back, one of which is the best offensive lineman in the league, and he was an All-American as a sophomore this year. So good players make coaches look really good. We just try not to get in the way and screw it up. But it goes back to just putting them in good spots and making sure that they're doing things that they can do and understanding the game plan each week. But, we got great young men to work with, and that's what I think keeps all of us around here as long as we've been here.
Well, Coach, we're going to dig into the offense in a little while. I did want to learn a little bit about your coaching journey and your start in this profession. So going back to the beginning, what was it that made you want to be a football coach?
Yeah, Keith, that's a great question. I was fortunate to play for Coach John Thorne, who's the father of our current head coach, Jeff Thorne. And Coach Thorne, John, was a very successful high school coach here in the area at Wheaton-Warrenville South, really got that program going, playing for state titles, winning state titles. I competed against him when I was a high school player, so I knew of kind of his legacy and how successful he'd been as a coach. And halfway through my career here as a wide receiver at North Central, he became the head coach. So my senior year, I got to play for him. I was fortunate to be a captain my senior year, and I was always around. I was kind of a gym rat, athlete junkie growing up, and was the same in college. So, when he came in, he was always more than willing to watch film and hang out and talk about leadership, talk about how to be a good teammate, how to be a good leader. And those were all things that really they captivated me as a 21-year-old. And when I got ready to graduate, fortunate enough that he trusted me enough to offer me a full-time spot as the receivers and tight ends coach. And I kind of felt like, hey, I've got to check out this college coaching thing. I had another job offer and just wasn't ready to, put down the playbook or stop watching film. So, I kind of joke that I guess I was on a 2-year interview with him, so to speak, and I think probably he kind of at the end of my senior year was like, I don't know if this kid's ever going to leave, so I might as well just pay him to do some work if he's going to be around. So, right place, right time. Hopefully I probably did a few decent things that impressed him, but certainly when I think back, Coach Thorne, giving me a start as a 22-year-old and handing over a lot of responsibility. It's not now being in my 15th year coaching, I start to understand how much trust that took for him to do that, and forever grateful to him for that.
Well, starting out as a 22-year-old, you're learning the ropes. I'm sure you made some mistakes, and looking back on that,
probably a lot.
what would be one mistake you made as a young coach that you really learned from, and making that mistake probably had a great impact on you?
Right. Yeah, that's a good one. I think one of the things as a young coach, one of the great things is that in coaching, you're going to be around so many different coaches that have so many different styles of coaching. There's 100 ways to skin a cat. There's 100 ways to coach football. And I think, maybe as a young coach, you try too hard to be like another coach that's on your staff, or maybe a coach that you read about or you see on TV or at a clinic, and then you feel like you got to do it that way. And I remember having conversations about that with Jeff Thorne, our current head coach, when he was the offensive coordinator, and him, encouraging us to, hey, you got to coach how you coach. I might coach this way, but you got to coach how you coach. And it wasn't necessarily any specific, instance or thing that happened that brought those conversations up. I think it was just an older coach mentoring a younger coach, and that was great advice. And I felt like it kind of gave me the freedom to coach how I wanted to coach, which ultimately was how I would have wanted to be coached as a player. And I think nowadays there's a little bit maybe more acceptance of that, as social media and other platforms can show just all the different types of coaches that there are, and there's a lot of ways to win. You got to find what works for you, and you've got to be you. And I think that's a huge thing, and I know that's something I would, with our GAs and our young coaches, it's something that I always try and demonstrate is, you've got to be you, and coach how you coach.
I think that's great advice. It was something we talked about on the podcast just last week with Brian Kite, who, he goes around and he works with college teams, corporations, school systems around the country. And his point was, when you're building a culture, while you might like what Dabo does or Saban does or Belichick does, that you can't go out and try to be that person. You might adopt some things from them. You might take some ideas, but ultimately everything you do kind of has to be congruent with who you are. So I think that's just some great advice. And when you look at the culture that you guys have, you've been a part of now for a long time as a player and a coach, you own a piece of that culture. And while you need to be in alignment with everything that coach sets up overall for the program, there's going to be things that you bring in that are important to your group. So when you think of your offense, how would you characterize that culture within your unit? Right.
I mean, it's going to change maybe a little bit every year, but I mean, in general, we want to dictate the tempo. We want to dictate, what the defense is doing, and so we feel like there's a number of ways to do that, and so there's kind of a checklist of things we're going to try and do, every week, every year. We want our kids to play fast, play physical, and play smart, and that starts with, you got to start on the board, you got to go to film, you got to walk it, and then you got to do it in a drill, and then you got to do it 11 on 11 or 7 on 7. So those are things we really try and go board, film, field. But in terms of overall philosophies, being able to stretch the defense both horizontally and vertically is something we want to try and do. Get our playmakers in space, and then use different tempos, all trying to kind of uncover what the defense is giving us. We're going to go in each week and you feel like you have an idea what they're going to do, but as we were speaking and we saw it this weekend with the defensive coordinators in the Super Bowl, they're probably going to come out and do some different things, especially if it's after a bye week or after a loss or after a rivalry game. You could see some different things. So there's a little bit of uncovering to do, particularly in the first few drives, first quarter. Certainly at half you have to be able to make some adjustments. But it all goes back to getting those playmakers in space, finding the green grass, and letting them use the skills that they have. Those are kind of the things that we want to focus on, every week. And we've been fortunate to be able to recruit and have, kids at different positions and not have to be a 10 personnel or 11 personnel or a 20 or 21 personnel team. We've been able to have tight ends and running backs and fullbacks and receivers, and so you can prod and poke a little bit and kind of see where you feel like you've got the best matchups against the defense that week. And it's from there it's just a matter of execution, and hopefully you've not hopefully, but you need to have prepared your guys throughout the week to execute in specific situations.
And when you talk about situations, there's two that you guys were the best in the country in, the red zone and third downs.
Right.
When you look at those two situations, let's take third downs first.
Sure.
To you, what are the keys to success on third down? I always told my head coach, like, our key to success will be that we don't get into third down, but that happens.
Right.
And obviously,
be good on first down. That's the first thing you need to do.
but for you, how do you create that package? You mentioned you have a number of different personnel groups at your disposal. So
right.
How are you going to craft that so that you guys can keep those chains moving?
Yeah, every week we're going to sit down and put together a different plan for really all the different situations that we feel like we might be in that week. And you're going to have your first down, choice down stuff, and then from there you got to get into the different situations that you're going to face. And third down is obviously maybe the biggest of them outside of perhaps red zone and goal line. So for us, it's looking at, first of all, third short, third and medium, third and long separately, not clumping them together. But then also breaking it down, formationally, and not just looking at, hey, this team likes to, bring 6 from the field, or this team likes to play coverage on third and long, but you trying to really dig into the data and dig into what they do in specific situations or against specific formations, and just get as technical and as deep as we can with that data, so that whatever that situation then might be in the game, we feel like we've got, at least by the percentages, we're as prepared as we can be. And at the end of the day, that's kind of our job is we have to prepare off of the information that we have. And then obviously once you get in game, as we mentioned a little bit ago, you've got to be able to adjust, if they're doing something different. But we're going to, for us, our method is we're going to start looking at third down, usually Tuesday night. We'll finish it up Wednesday morning, do the bulk of it Wednesday morning. We'll meet on it with our kids and give them the game plan for third down on Wednesdays, and then we'll have a nice long third down segment in practice. We'll hit the third down pass stuff again on Thursday, and then Friday, and walk through. If we feel like we need to go back over it again, we will. But for me, I really believe that the outside of the preparation, the key is your players need to know what is going to be called on third down, and they need to be prepared for it. And if they know what is going to be called. They know what's expected of them. They're going to know what we expect the defense to do. Now you're giving yourself the best possible chance to get out of those third down situations. And obviously for us, if as we joked, but it's true, if you can be good on first down, you've got a chance not to be in third down. But also, understanding if, hey, we're second and long, there's times where you're going to try and just go ahead and, get the first down on that play, but there might be other times where you're just trying to get to third and short because you'd rather be in third and short than third and 10. At least, that's how we view it. If it just your chances are going up in third and short, third and medium than they are when it's third and 12 or third and 9. Defenses can become a little bit more aggressive, complex, and change. The longer you get on third down, at least that's typically what we see. So there is truth to a lot of it. Goes back to being smart on second down, and particularly being smart when you're in second and long. And so that's another segment that we're going to prep for is second and long, and we're going to look at that differently than choice down or anything on first down. And I think that's something that helps you get in better situations on third down. Nobody ever wants to be third and 14. You're never going to lead the nation in third down if you're third and 14 or third and 12 all the time.
No.
But if you can be, third and 7, third and 8, third and 5, certainly third and short, now your playbook's going to be a lot more open to you. The further you get from the sticks on third down, the less and less and less of your playbook that's going to be available because of what the defenses are going to force you into. So that's kind of how we view it and practice it. But the key is definitely the young men on the field understanding what they're going to be looking at and what they're going to be facing in the different situations, and then knowing what we're going to be running. And for us, right now with the quarterback that we have, he's Player of the Year for the second time in our conference. He was the regional Player of the Year. He's an All-American. If Brock can know what we're doing and what we want to do, and I know what he's comfortable with, and we've got great communication throughout the week and on Saturday, then you're going to put yourself in the best chance possible to succeed on third down if you're in it.
Absolutely. I know at the college level, I really, I think, refined my thoughts on third down and really on game planning in general. And a lot of it was tied to the fact that I only had so many reps in practice, and I'm not going to go out in a game and run something that we haven't become proficient in. And certainly over the course of the year, you have that cumulative effect on reps. But when I look at those different sections you mentioned, and I added one that was third and extra long, which was like 10 plus.
Right.
Third and long, which went to 7 to 10. Third and medium was for me the 3 to 6, and then third and short was 1 to 2. And when I look at the high end of it, I would plan one extra long, maybe two. The long was 2. The mediums was where I really spent our time because I felt like we're looking to be on schedule, or if something happens, get back on schedule. So really want to be in that 3 to 6 range, which opens up your playbook a ton, because now you're in a run, you're in a pass. The closer you get in that range, play action's still good, your RPOs are good, and then the 1 to 2, obviously, I would keep that at about 2 to 3 calls because you just don't have a ton of those that happen per each game. And a lot of that really was in studying game planning, but a book I point to all the time was Brian Billick's book, Developing an Offensive Game Plan. And so that's where I was with those. When you look at how you break that up, what's your comfort level with how much you're going to carry in each section, especially in terms of that preparation that you have to have your guys being proficient and confident on game day?
Right. So our third down, shorts 1 to 3, mediums 4 to 6, long would actually be 7 to 12, and then after 12 is kind of our extra long. But we'll also, in our breaking down of defenses, we'll look for, particularly in third and long, okay, where do they change to their extra long, stuff. So, while we might in our data make third and extra long, third and 13 and plus, if they're switching at third and 10 to their, prevent defense, their end of game, end of half defense, then we're going to adjust what we're prepping, if that makes sense. But looking at our game sheets, we're typically third and short calls. We're going to be somewhere between 8 and 10. Third and medium, we're probably going to be very similar, around 10, 11 calls. Third and long, now we're going to have 7, somewhere between 6 and 8 calls on third and long, and some of those are variations of other stuff that we're already doing. So there's some crossover, and certainly you get into like third and 3, third and 4, there's some crossover in calls. Third and 6, third and 7, there's some crossover in calls. So we're not actually going to be carrying 30 third down calls into a game. It's probably more closer to 20 different calls, I would say, because there's a lot of different, like I said, crossover. So when we're practicing, what we'll try and do is in that, you talked about you have limited reps in practice, which is, it's true. Kids, we can't practice for 5 hours a day. So that third down segment that we have every day, we'll walk it in pre-practice, and then we'll do it again live, in third down, and then after team at the end of the day, if there's anything we feel like we really need to hit again, we can hit, because we usually get through our team script fairly efficiently. At least that's the plan. So we'll kind of pick out the plays that we feel like are going to be our top calls, on third and short, third and medium, third and long, and we'll be sure to practice those, or the plays that maybe aren't in our original, choice down game planning that we're doing on Sunday and Monday. So we just want to make sure that we're kind of hitting everything that we want to do across the board. So that's kind of how we'll break that down. We want to make sure you just never want to get into a game and feel like you want to call something that your kids haven't practiced against the few different looks you're going to get. Because it's not like, for us in our league, it's not like there's just one look that we're going to get on third and long. There's probably like 2, 3, or 4 looks that we could get on third and long. So you want to make sure that, number one, when you're building that package, you have answers within those plays. If we're talking about a pass concept for whatever coverage or blitz they give you, and then your kids have got to know how to execute it based on what you get. And certainly you're going to try and call the right plays in the right situations based on the information that you have in your game planning. But you still got to know kind of where the outlet is if something happens that we didn't expect. So it's important, at least we feel like it's really important to take those plays, whatever, might be sort of, what I would say is kind of new install on Wednesday, and make sure that we, rep it on the board and film, and then rep it and walk through and rep it, in that live third down segment.
Coach, moving to the other area, you guys were number 1 in the country in red zone. How do you view that area? Because I've heard coaches talk about that in a number of different ways. Different areas they break it up to, their approach in there. I know I had sections of my game plan which I'd have the runs, but more of the passes really started to need to be tailored or adjusted to that decreasing vertical space as you get closer to the end zone. So what's your approach in that area?
Yeah, first of all, what's the defense going to do? When do they change? So that's something we'll set out, and we'll usually try and figure that out on Monday. Our red zone goal line stuff, we'll practice. We'll walk through on Tuesday. We'll practice it in a live segment Tuesday. We'll practice it in a live segment Wednesday, and then we'll walk it again Friday during our walkthrough. So we spend a lot of time on that situation, and I think rightfully so. It's such an important part of the game. But we'll look and see, when does the defense change? And a lot of times there's a change once you get into the red zone or somewhere near the red zone, and then there's another change once you get actually close to the goal line, so usually somewhere the 5 and in. Not every team does that. Some might be the 10 and in, some might be the 3-yard line and in, some might be only at the 2 or the 1. Are they going to change into their goal line stuff? But you just kind of have to see. A lot of teams will play their base defenses all the way down, to inside the 5-yard line, and so for that, there's not much of a need to have a different plan, so to speak, in terms of what you're calling in the run game. And then in the pass game, it's just, you're going to change a little bit. You're not going to be running your play pass stuff and down the field, double posts or scissors and things like that. You got to try and, hit things where guys are making breaks under 10 yards and hitting receivers on the move. In the past, certainly RPOs are still all good, and the underneath play pass stuff with slants and arrows and crossers and curls are still good. But we want to try and hit guys on the move in the red zone. You don't want people standing still. That's when bad things can happen. And then the goal line stuff, that for us becomes a totally different plan. And you're right. I mean, some folks they have a goal line menu. It's in their playbook. They install it in camp. They install it in spring, and this is what we run. And we've had variations of that type of stuff in the past, and it worked for a while, and then you kind of just become predictable. And so every week we sort of go to the drawing board, so to speak, when we're doing our goal line game planning, and we just look and see, okay, where do we have leverage? Where do we have numbers? What formations do we like based on what the defenses are doing that we see on film, and then we, where does that fit within our playbook? So we put that plan together. Certainly there's some crossover week to week, and there's things that we do week to week, but we're not a staff that just has a playbook of goal line stuff, and this is what we do. We really want to be creative down there, and we don't want to, I guess, limit any part of our playbook just because we're at the goal line. But like you said, you're at the 4-yard line. You can't run a 12-yard corner route. You have to adjust those types of things, and certainly as the year goes on, you get into a flow of things that, as you figure out what your kids are good at and what they like doing, you start to lean on those things. So, you try and find formations and personnel groups to run that, handful of stuff that you really like and what you're really good at. But, even games 11, 12, later on in the season, we're still looking at, okay, what is the defense really trying to do down here? What do they like to get into? And how do they defend the different things that you do, whether it's mid-zone, inside zone, or counter, power, play pass, roll out, whatever it might be. Figure out what they're doing, and then, find situations where, we can gain leverage or gain matchups that are favorable to us.
Coach, when you get into those areas, how much of your offense do you look to carry over from your base situations where, this some of the attitude, I guess, of this is what we do, so we're not going to change a ton here?
Yeah, I don't think we ever will look at it and go, this is what we do, this is who we are, and we're just going to do this. We really want to have an open mind and figure out, where are our numbers, where's the leverage, where's the green grass, and how do we get there? How do we get our best kids there? Now, certainly as you go through the season, there is an element of this is what we're best at, this is what our kids are best at executing, so this is going to be in the game plan, but it becomes a matter of, do we have it? we'll carry plays. Option is one of the plays that we'll carry it if the look's right. We're not gonna run it just because we want to run it. But certainly I think if you watched our film or even asked the defensive coordinators in our league, they could probably tell you the 2 or 3 things that run wise or pass wise we tend to do down there. But I would argue that we're doing that because that's what's given to us. And again, it just kind of goes back to part of our philosophy, which is take what the defense gives you. One of the funniest questions I feel like you ever get in recruiting is, what's your run pass ratio, or how much do you want to run or pass the ball? And my answer is whatever it takes so that we have more points than the visitors or the other team has. It's going to change every game. We might throw it 20 times one game and 45 the next. It really just depends what we're getting and how we can score the most points.
Coach, your passing completion rate was pretty high this season, 71.7. What do you attribute that to? Is it the certain type of plays you're running? Is it the preparation? Is it a combination of those things?
Sure. I think it's a combination of that. It does. Again, I'm just going to give a lot of credit to our players and to our quarterback. Our quarterback is a student of the game. He's in here and one of our offices. He's in every day watching film, putting up statistics, putting up tendencies, writing down what we're doing in each set, writing down what the defense's blitz percentages are in each set, and he sits in here and watches film and he'll come over and ask questions. And he's a coach on the field. He's really good at seeing when somebody's out of place and where there's somewhere that we can take advantage of. And we're not an offense that is necessarily asking our quarterback to make a bunch of checks and get us in and out. We want to play with tempo. We want to try and do the majority of that workload as coaches, on Sunday and Monday in game planning and putting them in good spots. But he's just really good at seeing when things are available. Certainly our offense has some facets to it that I think lend to that. When you run RPOs and your high percentage on those, and you run bubbles and little now screens to receivers when alley players or safeties are misaligned, that's going to help your completion percentage. But it's not all that. You got to have young men that understand what you're trying to do, and I'll give credit to the guys running around catching passes as well. They understand defenses and they understand where the holes are each week. And in our meetings, I think our kids, catching and running with the ball are on the same page as the ones throwing it, and that's a huge part of it. Having those guys meet together, understanding each other's responsibilities. That's another big thing. We don't have a lot of unintelligent football players playing in our offense. They understand football. They understand where they're supposed to be. They understand where the guy next to them is supposed to be, and they understand how it all works together. They get why they're running a drag route, with a dig on the other side, and why they have to, outside release an alley player to protect drags, or whatever it might be, running a vertical and getting a certain release on a safety. They understand that. They understand why, and that's a big part of it is teaching those young men why you're doing what you're doing, not just do what you're doing, but why you're doing what you're doing. So I give them a lot of credit for that. It's fun to coach them, and so when you get the right combination of coaches who are preparing guys the right way and seeing the right things on film as you're breaking down defenses, and then you get a group of guys who understand what you're coaching them, you've got an opportunity to be in the top 10 in the country in a number of categories. And fortunately, we've got some guys going through that's important to them.
Coach, we're going to get into the specifics here. I know we're on audio, but if you could talk us through one of your favorite concepts from this past year, whether that was run or pass or an RPO or something along that line, what's one of those plays that really did well for you in 2018?
Right. One of the things we've always done a nice job with, our triangle concepts and our spacing concepts and doing them a lot of different ways, whether it's curl, flat arrow, or, whether it's 5 across, triangles with out routes and curls and ball routes. We've always been really good at that stuff. And we felt last year at this time we needed to put in some more drive route stuff, some more mesh stuff. And so that was a big focus in our off season as an offensive staff, going to places and finding some different ways for pass catchers to be catching the ball on the move and not just be stationary on curls or, running corner routes and you're near the sideline, but, trying to catch some passes underneath drag routes at, 5-6 yards with, digs behind them. So that was a big focus for us, and we found a couple of different things that we had success with. We've always been an offense that has used the running back in the pass game, and 2 years ago, 2017, our running back Austin Brunig was the player of the year in our conference. He led the league in all-purpose yards, and he was a beast out of the backfield. So it was a big task this year to replace him. Fortunately, we recruited some younger guys, and we had some guys already in the program that really worked hard at the pass-catching part of things out of the backfield, because we ask our back to do that. And so, one of our concepts that really worked well for us, was in a 2-by-2 set, putting number 1 on an under route, putting number 2 on a corner, getting the running back out to that same side on an arrow route, and then being able to bring a drag from a backside slot or tight end, back to that play side where you had your arrow and corner, and then on the very back end of it, throwing an out route on it. And so if we have access, our quarterback can see, and he can just bang that out route. If coverage would roll or you'd get blitz, then, certainly the front side with your arrow route with the running back is an option. You get some sort of cover 2, now you've got arrow, you've got a smash concept with your arrow in your corner, and if those things are all covered, typically that drive route or drag route from the backside is coming back into a vacant zone, because you've almost flooded that front side. So that was a new concept, and it played well off of some other sit concepts that we've been running for years. It just gave a little bit of a different look to it because people weren't sitting down; we were staying on the move.
Mm-hmm. Well, Coach, to tie things up here, just your thoughts on a couple things, kind of bigger picture ideas. First of all, when you look at the future of our game, and you and I were talking a little bit about this before we got into the podcast, but are there any concerns you have right now for the future of the game? And in looking at that, what solutions or ideas do you have to help deal with some of those issues?
Right. I truly worried about it? No. Is there some criticism over it right now? Yes. I think the more coaches and players and parents can continue to talk about just all the positives that athletics and being a part of athletics, and specifically being a part of the game of football, the more we can kind of put out the good vibes and put out the good stories, as we were talking about, I think the better. I mean, there's so many wonderful things that come out of this game. No matter what you do in life, there's risk. And so you're constantly having to weigh risk versus reward in just about every decision, just about everything that you do in life. And, playing a sport, being a part of theater or whatever it might be, there's always going to be a risk reward. And what obviously the physical aspect to contact sports and to football is maybe a little bit of a heavier risk to some folks, but I would argue that the reward for what you get out of football is just, it's so outweighs that. And I mean, I can't speak to this necessarily, but I'm going to guess there's not a whole lot of folks that got paid to play football in the NFL that regret doing that. It's something that everybody cherishes and works for. Every single kid who's playing football since they're 8 years old wants to play for as long as they can at the highest level that they can. I just don't know anybody who walks away from the game and says, wow, that was, not worth it. And I think the more that we can pass that message, and the more also we can have doctors and scientists, say, hey, my kid's going to play football and it's okay, and the benefits outweigh the risks. I think obviously the better will be for it. There's certainly things that we do here at North Central to try and prevent injury, prevent concussions, whether it's in the weight room and strengthening necks, or whether it's, having Kevlar inserts in our helmets, or wearing the Guardian caps in practice, having a doctor come in and measure our guys and do prehabilitation stuff and identify areas where they might be weak or have deficiencies. There's things that you can do to prevent injury, outside of just, putting on a knee brace or, what have you. But I know for us, it's part of who we are, and what we do is protecting, our young men. They're our investment, so to speak. So we're doing everything that we can in terms of research and finding ways to protect our players and help them, be healthy, help them make great life choices so that they're as strong and prepared for, the game of football every Saturday as they can be. But I don't think our game's going away. It's too valuable. We're in a time where I think we've got a great opportunity to sort of speak up and, show how great it is. It's not just a bunch of meatheads coaching and playing. There's very, very intelligent, articulate folks that are part of this game. I mean, just look at the coaches that we're coaching and the players that we're playing yesterday.
Right.
They're high-level people, not just high-level athletes. So I think we just got to continue to get that message out, but also, the awareness and hopefully, there's such an awareness at the NFL and I think college level about injuries and concussions that hopefully that will continue to spread down to the youth leagues. There's so much regulation at our level with practice time and heat and cold and contact and everything. Hopefully some of that has or will continue to spread to the youth levels. In my opinion, that's where I think there's a lot of just traction to be made. Where you've got young kids playing for the first time, you've got people coaching who maybe are coaching for the first time, and there's nothing against that. It's great. It's awesome that folks are out there doing that for their kids or their friends' kids. but there needs to be regulation in that as well, so that by the time kids get to college, they get to us, they haven't already had those injuries. They're still coming to us healthy. It's a little bit like, I guess, third down. If you can stay out of third down,
right,
or stay in shorter third downs, your percentages are going to go up. If we can get healthier kids by the time they're 18, 19 and they're playing in college and they haven't had as many injuries or concussions, there's a lot better chance they're going to finish their career that way. So I think just continuing to regulate the game at all levels will be pivotal as we go forward.
Well, Coach, one last question for you. When you look at all the things you're doing now and things you've adopted as a coach, what's the one thing you do that you feel really gives your players the winning edge?
Yeah, that's a great question. We'll have recruits come to practices and things like that, and the comments that the thing they usually come away from in the practice and say is, "It looks like your guys are having fun, and football looks fun here." And maybe that's because we've got music going and we're fast paced, we're running from every station, and we're never in one segment for too long. But I think creating an atmosphere, creating a culture where your kids can have fun is important, and you do that by having time and having a place for them to really connect with each other, and we're very intentional about that. I think a lot of coaches and programs will try and say, "Yeah, we have a great culture, and we're this and we're that," and we have this cool lounge, or they hang out in the locker room. That's not enough. You've got to do other things within your program. I believe, to help your guys love each other and want to play really, really hard for each other. And I think we do a great job of that. I think we do a great job of creating an atmosphere and creating times for our players to really get to know each other and love each other. And if they love each other, they want to play for each other, it's going to show up on the field in practice. They're going to be smiling. They're going to be playing hard, practicing hard, and that's all going to turn into wins. And so we kind of believe in that genesis, and we feel like that's sort of the path that we want to keep our program on, is just continuing to cultivate great young men who want to be All-American fathers, All-American husbands, All-American scientists, lawyers, CEOs, coaches, janitors, mechanics, engineers, whatever it might be. If we do things right, things will continue to work out. Coach Thorne, he would always used to say, the more I do things right, the more things seem to work out. And that's, we truly believe in that. Do things the right way, and the right things are going to happen. So I'd say that's something that we've got going on.
Coach, how can our listeners connect with you?
Shoot, it's 2019, so just about any way. I'm on Twitter. Email is great as well. So there's not a lot of secrets in football. We're all here to help each other and get better and connect. So I think those are probably the two most readily available ways to connect with us and connect with our staff.
Awesome. Well, Coach, we'll share that and maybe some of the other things that you shared on the podcast in our show notes. I really appreciate you taking the time, and it was great to talk ball with you.
Yeah, my pleasure, Coach. Good luck with everything coming up in the future.